Cheers.
Hello, hello. I am happy to be here with you today. This is Michelle Drew, your host, and I am thrilled to be here with a good friend of mine I've known for many, many years, Vanessa Lagoa. Vanessa is a very successful entrepreneur, has been for many years, and she actually is going to share with us today about a mess that she had in her world that I was very much unaware of, and how she kind of came full circle. And she has a message for us today. So, Vanessa, welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be able to spend time talking to you and sharing, yes, my mess with other
Yeah.
people.
Yes. And like I said, I knew nothing of this mess. So, going back to the time when you were in the middle of it all and trying to figure it out and make sense of it and make some decisions to change, bring us back to that time.
Well, my mess was really that I was a significant problem drinker, um, for many years. I guess the beginning of my mess would have been from the first time I picked up alcohol. I was about 15 years old. Immediately I drank for effect. I drank heavily. I drank for a long time. And for many years, I tried to stop drinking to get control of it, to sort of moderate. And it didn't work well for me.
Mm.
And the longer that went on, the bigger the mess became. And ultimately, I was 36 years old. I had a life I had always dreamed of and found myself surrounded by people and never felt so alone. I was really overwhelmed and I knew my drinking had become a big problem and needed to be changed.
Yeah, and we make excuses, don't we? It's like, I know for myself in those times, it's like, well, I want to lose weight and I'll do all this stuff, but I'm not going to give up my wine,
Oh my gosh. I
right?
mean, I was the queen of that. Yes. I mean, I did every diet that was known to man but I would, modify it to meet remember doing Weight Watchers for years and being like, oh, good, I get, 20 points a day. All right, good. I'll save 10 for alcohol at the end of the night. And like, could never rationalize why I wasn't getting the results I wanted. But I refused to, address that, you know,
Right,
part of
right.
my life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that you have a family and you have a lot of other people that depend on you for certain things. How did that come into play in your family situation? Were they aware? Did they have no idea?
So yes, I have a big family. I have 5 children and a wonderful husband, and he was very aware of my drinking being a problem. And but again, I wasn't really willing or ready to acknowledge that. So I would sort of brush it off when he would say things like, you're drinking again, or you're drinking, stop. Like when do you stop? And like
Yeah.
the truth was I didn't stop. And I would, throw it back at him like, oh my gosh, you just don't know how to have fun. You need a drink. It's not that bad. And like mommy wine culture is so prevalent. And so it was sort of like, I deserve a glass of wine, which was never a glass of wine. It was many, many
Yeah.
bottles. And so he was very aware of it. And it definitely affected my family. I mean, my children were younger, so I don't know that they were super aware of what was going on. My teenagers, they were likely very aware.
Right.
Um, but I was doing things that like were against my moral compass. I was drinking and driving. My children were in the car at times. So I mean, that's a huge effect on my family. I was definitely jeopardizing
Yeah.
their safety. And
Yeah.
and probably like, you know, the way that they looked at me, like, why is mom being weird? Why is she acting like that? But yes,
Yeah.
it was definitely a problem that I wasn't ready to address, but it was visible to,
Right.
husband and
Right.
some close people in my life, for
And I
sure.
know it must have been hard because I know you're 5 years sober now, and congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
amazing. But your salon, you make it very welcoming and inviting to you're getting pampered, you're having your hair done. Would you like a glass of wine with that
Right.
hairstyle, whatever? And a lot of people probably say yes. So,
Right.
you were in that environment of, well, I'm going to have a glass of wine with my client, right?
Yes. And I mean, that was, I tell my husband now, the extent of it, like I was definitely not a full truth teller. Hate the word liar, right? But if I had, say you came in at the end of the night and I was like, oh, Michelle, would you like a glass of wine? Great. You know what? I'll have one with you.
Mm.
And I would have one, and then I would have two, and then I would clean up and have three, and then I would pour a glass in a, coffee cup and drive home with it. Throw that away outside, in the garbage can outside, and then crack open a bottle. And my husband would be like, "Oh my gosh, you just walked in the house and you're having wine." And here I
Mm.
was a bottle deep, right? And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just got home. Like no big deal." So I wasn't being forthcoming about the extent of the drinking. But yeah, I mean, I was always, one of the things that I write about is how when I was first opening my very first hair salon, I sent my husband to go take a look and, maybe do a minor repair for me. And he came home that night and he's like, "Hey, do you think it's a problem that, or do you think it's normal that you don't have chairs yet, you don't have furniture, you don't have bottles of shampoo, but you have bottles of wine?"
Mm.
And I was so defensive.
Right.
And I mean, at the time I was pregnant too. So I tried to be like, oh, it's not for me. But my mentality, it was so ingrained that like that
Yeah.
was the first thing I had, wine glasses and bottles of wine. And I
Wow.
tried to, minimize it, like, oh, well, other people like to have it. But
Yeah.
really, I was like setting myself up for that
Right.
to
Right.
sort of put it in every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
There wasn't a facet of my life where alcohol wasn't welcomed.
Yeah, right, right. And I don't think you're alone in that at all. I think that,
Absolutely not.
yeah, times when I was in that world, it's like the first thing I woke up in the morning, I'm like, okay, so I don't have any wine in the house. I got to make sure I get that, that
Yeah,
taken care of today,
absolutely.
before 5 o'clock hits, right?
Right. And I mean,
So, yeah.
I even got to the point where that wasn't really an option that I didn't always have something. I was very calculated about that. But I mean, I remember one night specifically, um, I had one bottle of wine left and I dropped it and like the bottle shattered.
Wow.
I was in panic mode because that was like a necessity, like I needed to have that. And my younger kids were already in bed. And that was the night that I discovered that there's actually alcohol delivery service. And that was a game changer for me because I didn't have to bring my kids to the wine store anymore. It was just I always planned ahead for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it's, like you said, it's just so prevalent in our culture today. And we normalize it. It's like, oh, functioning alcoholic. What does that even mean?
well, I always say that when people would say to me, "Really? Like I didn't know that you had a drinking problem." Really? I mean, I had people even kind of close to me that were like, "Are you sure?" Um, and they would say things like, "Well, you're a functioning alcoholic." And what I say is that just means I knew how to hide it really well. Because,
Yeah.
I was never begging on the street corner for money. I wasn't stealing my grandmother's jewelry to feed a habit. Always had a job, had a family, had friends. So I couldn't be an alcoholic, right?
Right.
And that just means that it's so ingrained. I mean, really, when you think about it, it's the only drug, the only poison, really, that one, you have to almost justify why you're not partaking in. If you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, no, thank you, like I don't want to drink," people are like, "Why? What's
Right.
wrong? Are you pregnant?" "No, I'm not this time." But
This time.
it's like, if somebody said to me, "Vanessa, do you want some heroin?" And I was like, "No, thanks." Nobody would say, "Why not? Are you
Right.
sure? Do you have a problem?" So it's
Yeah.
just so ingrained. It's everywhere, like you
Yeah.
said. I mean, I would sit at a baseball game with a Yeti filled with, vodka. And I wasn't alone in that.
Right. Right. No, not at all. Not
Yeah.
at all.
Kids' birthday parties, baby showers. It's everywhere. And I loved that. When I was
Yeah.
actively drinking, phew, it was like a relief.
Yes.
But it
Yes.
is, it is, no, it's everywhere. And it's not, I don't know, it's a little too easy to get
Right.
away with it. And I've told you before, being a suburban mom is like the perfect cover for
Right.
being, somebody with a drinking problem.
Right. And that makes it really difficult to change your habits.
Absolutely. Right. Because again, it's it's so I don't want to say encouraged, but it's become so normalized that it's more bizarre to say, no, I'm not going to drink. Or, you know, if somebody's having a party and there's not going to be alcohol, other people are like, well, why not? I mean, I was that person. I was like, what do you mean they're not going to have drinks at their kid's third birthday party? Like, I can't, why not? How else are we going to get through it? It sort of has become this be all end all. Like, it's like, you can get through this because you'll have a drink, or don't worry, there'll be alcohol.
Right.
And I feel like, we're really kind of gypping ourselves of being fully present. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
it takes years.
you can attest to that now being 5 years on the other side. And I
Yes.
know that you've got some really amazing things in the works. I'm so excited to talk about that. And so you mentioned that you're in the process of writing a book.
I am. So it's been a lifelong dream and goal of mine to write a book. And I just couldn't fine tune what that book was going to be about until one day it sort of all clicked that I do feel like it's my purpose to, and it comes most naturally for me to connect with people in sharing sort of like the experiences I've been through. And, when I share that, it helps me help other people. And um, so
Yeah.
yes, so I'm writing a book about early sobriety, getting sober, and some tips and strategies to sort of get through that um excuse my language, but the fuckery of the beginning of it all.
Yeah.
Because it is not this, oh, I'm just gonna stop drinking and it's gonna be rainbows and butterflies. There's a lot of mess to the
Yeah.
beginning, and I'd like to help people be able to navigate through that
Yeah.
with some hope.
And you did a TikTok video that I loved, and it talked about you don't go on vacation and start a diet. So
Yes.
talk about that
So
TikTok.
change does not come when people are comfortable, right? So I say, you know, nobody goes on vacation to an all-inclusive resort and decides today's the day they're gonna, go on a diet. You don't have access to all this and make change. You don't inherit millions of dollars and decide today's the day you're gonna budget. People make change when they're feeling like they're stuck, they're
Yeah.
tired, they're broke, they're overweight, they just need something to give.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, I feel like that change comes when you've had enough.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have to necessarily be for people who are looking to change their drinking habits. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you hit a rock bottom. I would love to try to intervene with people before they get to that point,
Right.
when they're recognizing that, their drinking's a bit of an issue, but they haven't, maybe found themselves in medically induced trouble from drinking, or in jail, or, God knows what. But I'd like to try to intervene and help make that change before.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
And I feel like you're a perfect role model for that because you are a woman who has a wonderful life, a wonderful family. Your boys are fantastic
Thank you.
and everybody seems so well adjusted. So if I were reading your book and saying, well, we're the same avatar, right? I mean, I'm a little older than you, but you know, I can relate to someone like you. I may not relate to someone who was on the streets
Yes,
begging for money.
and that's a big part of what I'm working towards, is that, when I first got sober, I did go to AA, and I will forever credit much of my success to the people in the program of AA. But I don't subscribe to a lot of the same theories that are promoted in AA. And I didn't totally feel like that was where I belonged. So part of what I'm trying to encourage people to do is find people who they can relate to. And, in this facet of life that I'm in right now, I can relate to the suburban mom, the middle-aged people who haven't necessarily hit their bottom. And if they have, great. I mean, hey, let's make some change there too. But, you know, for people to understand that I can relate to where
Yeah,
you're at. I can relate to that mommy wine culture. I can relate to having a hard time saying, I'm not going to drink today. Like, I can help people with that.
right.
you know.
Right. And I know one thing that you, when you talk with people who are in that situation, you're not telling them you can never drink again.
No.
It's like you're much, I don't know, tell me about that. Talk about that.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's, we have this mindset of like alcoholic or no problem drinking, right? So there's this whole spectrum, and it's not my job or my responsibility, or what I think maybe somebody else should do. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to tell somebody, if you're going to work with me or you're going to, make these changes, you have to say you're never going to drink again. First of all, I think that that is so daunting and that's so overwhelming. And when you've used a coping mechanism, the majority of your life, to remove that is very scary. It's really scary in the beginning. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a reason that the one day at a time
Mm.
phrase is so prevalent in AA, because when you think about the long run and think like, if I was to tell you, you can never drink again, I mean, if you tell somebody they can never have something ever again, no matter what it is, it's,
Yeah.
it's like, it's so overwhelming. But if we can get through like today, just worry about today. I tell a lot of women who are struggling and they're trying to change their habits, like, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. We're going to focus on today. If today you can just say, today I'm not going to pick up a drink. Today I'm not going to pick up a drug. Today is the day I know I can get through today.
Yeah.
And we start there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people come into things like this with the idea that it's just they're going to take a break. They're going to do 30 days or 60
Yeah.
days. And that's fine. I think a lot of times people, the further in they get, they realize how much better they feel and that they don't really want to go backwards.
Yeah.
So, but it's not it's the goal setting, it has to come from the individual.
Yeah, I agree 100%,
Mm.
100%. So now we're going to write this book and that's going to get out there. And I have a question for you. Do you ever see yourself? Because a lot of people who write books find themselves on stage speaking to larger groups of people in a more, personal than reading it in a book, right? I like to hear the story and see the person. Do you ever see that happening for yourself?
I do. I would, to connect with people and to have people hear something that I say resonate with them because they can relate is so empowering to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would love to be able to connect with more people by sharing my message in a larger, with a larger audience. That's definitely a goal of mine. Yeah, for sure.
And I think the opportunity to meet you and have that connection, that energetic connection with you, I think will bring it to a whole new level.
I mean, I hope so. I'm just like a pretty regular person, and I feel like sometimes when you read somebody's book or you hear somebody's podcast or follow them on social media, we tend to think of people as like, oh, well, they did it, but I can't.
Right.
I might not be able to do that. They
Mhm.
were able to, but like look at where they are.
Right.
And it's like I am so much like everybody else, and my story is not unique. My story is not, you know, I wouldn't say powerful. It's very typical.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what more people can relate to that.
Yeah. What
No.
are the three R's? I put up two fingers. What are the three R's that you call yourself? Raw, real.
Real, raw, and relatable. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, real because I am just a real regular person, raw because I will tell you, I'm not going to just paint the magical picture of, like I said, rainbows and butterflies. I mean, there's some there's something powerful in realizing that, for me at least, alcohol wasn't really the problem. I was the problem. And like when I figured that out, I was like, wait a second, this is awful. And there's a lot of soul searching that comes with that.
Oh,
That is not all of this beautiful spiritual awakening. It can be ugly. So I'm
yeah.
very, honest about that
Yeah.
and relatable. Like we've said, I can just relate to so many women in
Yeah.
so many different areas of life, work, family. Um, yeah, so I try to just keep it real, and
Yeah.
Um,
That's so great. So, so great. I feel like you can touch so many lives, and the goal of this podcast, if you want to call it that, right, is you could touch one life and the ripple effect of that. They have family and friends and all of that,
yes.
the ripple effect. And I think that's what's so powerful
I
about what
think
you're
that
doing.
probably some of the most, I don't know, I guess I would say impactful things to me have been, so every year on the anniversary of my sobriety, the first year and going forward, I share the same post. And it's, basically, this wasn't an easy thing to post, but I've decided that, if I can help one person, then me putting myself out there is worth it. And I share the story of sort of like my mess and how my mess was and how I was living this like, on a hamster wheel here, and how I was able to get to a year sober. And when I share that every year, it's touched other people who have reached out to me. And then those people, have gotten some sobriety, and then they share their story. And then they tell me that, that message reached somebody else, and it becomes like the domino effect. And to me, that's really cool. And,
Yeah.
that's one reason why, I mean, people have asked, like, aren't you like embarrassed? Because I'm pretty open and honest about some of the things that I'm not proud of, but,
Right.
take those things and grow. People will ask, like, aren't you embarrassed to like talk about some of those things? And I'm like, well, no. And because
It's your
I,
life.
and I would be embarrassed to be armed with the knowledge of being able to help other people and not sharing that.
Mm,
That wouldn't sit well with me. Um, so, at the cost of it, the expensive embarrassment, I'll take it,
yeah.
to help other people. I think that really lights my fire.
Yeah, that's so great. So, so great. So, is there anything that we did not discuss or a question that I didn't ask you that you hoped that I would?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that my main message to people is that whatever you're feeling right now, whether
Mhm.
you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed or concerned, or you're questioning your drinking, or just, things are just feeling really overwhelming. Um, on my 5-year sobriety date, I got tattoos on my wrists that say, on one wrist, this too, and on the other wrist, shall pass. And I really try to get people to understand that whatever you're feeling right now is temporary. This too shall pass. You will get through this. And to focus on that, because when you can understand that these are just pieces of your life, it's so much easier to embrace whatever you have going on right now. So, not to feel stuck, not to
Yeah.
feel alone. There are lots of people who want to help people on their journey. And I hate that
Right.
word journey, but it's
Yeah.
a journey.
Right. And what a beautiful message to leave people with. I think that's fantastic. Now, where can people find you on social
Um,
media and all that? Where can they find you?
so I am on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as the Sobriety Buzz. And because I'm trying to tell people what the buzz about sobriety is. And my website is under construction, it's on its way. And I do hope to be getting a book out in the next sometime. But the Sobriety Buzz is where we can connect.
Yeah. And your videos are incredible. So guys, you got to check out the Sobriety Buzz. Your TikTok videos go to your other social media platforms as well, right?
Yes, I find TikTok is a great place to record the videos, and then I recognize everybody's on different platforms, but I do try to share those, a
Perfect.
couple times a week.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. This has been enlightening, and I know that you're going to help so many people. Even if you don't know it, they might take this message and move forward with it. And again, that ripple effect is going to be magic. It really
Thank you.
is.
Well, thank you for, taking the time to get this message out and,
Mhm.
hopefully help break the stigma.
Yeah, for sure.